I want to go back. He wants to go back. I want to go back to the farm. Go back far away from home, with a milk pail on my arm. I miss the rooster, the one that used to wake me up at 4 a.m. down on the farm.
I'm Scott Bain. They called me the old farmer. There are times when I would like to be able to mount my cell phone so that it would be easy for several people to look at it at one time. Think of it as if you shrank a large TV to the size of a phone. So this is what I came up with, a 3-legged easel. After making the first one, I realized this would be a good project for kids to do, if an experienced adult participates. Before I get started, I got some new camera mounts so that I could use mic stands for cameras. I wasn't too trusting of the new stand to hang a good camera over a table saw blade while it's running. For some reason, even though it said it was recording and the clock was counting up for all shots on this project, I could not find one piece of video from an old cell phone that I was using for a second camera. So I don't have a second angle shots for the video. With days like this, I do miss the old technology. Now you know why you don't see a second angle with a video. So let's get going and do this project. If you plan to do this project with a young child, there are certain things you will have to consider. The adult will have to judge what the child can do based upon each young individual. I let my nephew, when he was 14, use a table saw. He could handle it if I watched things like a hawk. He was about to make a mistake that was dangerous, and I rapped him on the knuckles hard with a piece of 1x1, something like a piano teacher rapping the hands of a student. I explained that he could have lost some fingers and there would be nothing I could do to make the mistake go away. He is now in his 40s. And he says he often remembers that incident, and it has saved him many times from very serious injuries. He repairs diesel engines for touring buses the size of Greyhound buses, so mistakes can be very dangerous. This project can be done without any power tools. The single drilled hole could be completed with a brace and bit. The nice thing about this project is it doesn't have to be made to exact tolerances. I might suggest that if the legs are different lengths that you wrap them in masking tape on the two ends, but have the end that will be the feet be even with each other. Let the top part be of varying lengths if the legs are not exact. All dimensions are adjustable. If you want, you could bore a hole through 3 railroad ties for a stand. For me, I made the length to be 8.5 inches, giving plenty of room to round off or angle the feet. All the sides are 3/4 of an inch. This leaves plenty of room for sanding if you wish. I thought I had the correct size machine screw, but I didn't, so Mrs. Old Farmer went to the hardware store and got the parts I needed. Until she got back, I used a nail of the proper diameter to see if the concept would work. It did very nicely. I did have to figure out how far apart I needed to have the front and back legs. It's a bit front heavy when the phone is sitting on it. I used number 832 bolts, washers, and nuts. The machine screws was 2.5 inches long. You might, if you double nut it, will want to make the screw to be 2 3/4 inches, or possibly use a lock nut or some Loctite. It's important to tighten the nut enough to cause some friction on the legs so that the easel won't spread eagle from the weight of the phone. I ended up making 2 prototype stands. Mrs. Old Farmer wanted one of her own. You can see when I cut the pieces that a piece of scrap 2x4 will make plenty of these easels. Make them from any type of wood you have as a scrap laying around. For these first ones I didn't sand because the saw blade had a fine enough teeth to cut pretty smooth. I do plan on making about 10 more of these. With the 10 I will be making, I will sand, round the bottom of the legs, plus stain and finish. The crossbar where the phone sits was glued into place with Titebond number 3, that is intended for cutting boards and similar projects. I didn't use any clamps or weights. I just put a little spot of glue about half the width of the legs and set the cross piece in place with a little push to force the glue into the grain. A half hour later, it could hold a phone. The first one I made, I did not tape the 3 pieces of wood together, and the drilled hole was not quite in the same place on all 3 pieces. It still worked without a problem. The one I made for Mrs. Old Farmer, I did tape at both ends, so that the holes were the same on all 3 pieces. Hers looked better, and I put a double nut on hers. To do so meant I had to tighten things down a bit more. I did this so she would not have an issue with the legs spreading apart. This is the finished design. If you look, I did not have the machine screws yet. I must say that there was enough friction to hold the phone. But I also know that without the screw and nuts, the easel would loosen up and soon would spread eagle with the weight of the phone on it. I pulled up one of my YouTube videos to demonstrate how it would look with a phone in place.
In his shop that masked the operation of the joiner. He also had a double layer of hearing protection on, earplugs and then the headphones over the top of it. So he couldn't hear that it was on. He lost concentration by focusing too greatly on the project that he was doing, and he was starting to use the joiner for stacking pieces of wood that he was working on. He did not have the guard in place.
Well, there you have it, an easel stand for a cell phone. I guess you could even make a larger version for a tablet. This is the Old Farmer, Scott Bain, saying, be well.